All right, welcome to the first Natter with Macca. That's what I'm going to call my little interviews, and I'm so blessed to have you on as my first guest, McQuilty.
Thank you very much.
So McQuilty, for people that don't know you, you were a sergeant and a medic with the Army. You've done. Can you explain a little bit about how many tours you've done and what your role was with the Army? And firstly, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Julie. So I was a medic in the Australian Army for 18 years and left at the rank of sergeant. 3 deployments. I went to East Timor in 2001, Iraq in 2006, and Afghanistan in 2011, where unfortunately I was wounded in action. And as a subsequent process, I had to leave the Army because of those wounds I sustained. But yeah, it was the best job in the world and I loved every bit of it.
So what inspired you to get into the Army?
I was actually on the bus coming home from Townsville to Bowen, sitting next to my teacher reading a story about the medics at Long Tan. And I said to my teacher, it was grade 10, I said, I'm joining the Army. So I don't need to finish school. And he said, you'll finish school and then you'll join the Army. So I said, okay. He was a good teacher, that one, yeah.
Yeah. And so, so who has influenced you in your life? Who's been probably one of the biggest influences for you?
My mum's probably the biggest one. She's Fijian, so she taught us all the time to be happy and to appreciate things in life and to love life.
Yeah.
My dad too. My dad was the disciplinarian, so he taught us about discipline early on. I mean, back in those days, you get flogged with a bit of hose if you do something wrong or something like that. But, I've got no regrets about anything that happened in our lives. I think it makes us better people at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And in the professional world, in my role as a medic, there was a bloke by the name of Nathan Grumley that inspired me to be better every day at my job because he was a magician with people. So, those sort of influences influenced everything that I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you're, and if I ask anything that you don't wish to answer, please just go, move on.
I'll answer everything.
Oh, you're a man. You're awesome.
Yeah.
So when you're deployed, how difficult is it for you not to overthink things?
For me, probably not that difficult because we trained a hell of a lot for our deployments. I think the biggest thing that we overthink was what was happening at home. Because the thing is, when you call from overseas, you can't talk to them about what you're doing over there.
Yeah.
So you've got to try and elicit conversation from them on the phone. My wife was awesome. She was ex-Army too, so she understood straight away that if I was ringing from overseas, they should just talk about the kids and what they've been doing, and it gave me a sense of security. But as far as my job went, my job was more, preparing everybody's mindset for expectation of casualty and what would happen when we got those casualties. And because we trained so much, I was happy to do my job, and I didn't overthink anything in that part of the world.
Yeah. Amazing. Is that your chickens in the background?
Yeah, we've got one chicken left, and she hangs out with the dogs. So
because our magpies just flew in, I could hear them, and I could hear your chicken going.
This chicken's going off. It sits up on the bench and everything. She tries to come in the house.
Oh, does it? Yeah. A friend of mine's got one that lives in the house. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
so tell me a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, and were you a sporty kid? Were you good at things that you did? Or did that was something that came later in life for you?
Yeah, I grew up in Bowen, which is 2 hours south of where I am now.
Yeah,
and my mum still lives there. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love going home. And as a kid, I tried to do everything. I tried to play a lot of sports. I wasn't very good at the rugby league, rugby union at that stage. But hockey, I loved hockey, and I could play hockey pretty well, field hockey, so that was good. But I'd give anything. I actually did athletics a fair bit too, and I actually got some good times for athletics. Just always never close enough to rep because there's some fast kids at our school, some bush kids that were flat out quick.
Yeah.
And I guess my ability with rugby came a bit later on after I joined the Army and put a bit of size on and played a fair bit of rugby with the Army and with teams throughout the Army. And got named in the Army National Squad twice. Unfortunately, couldn't go both times, but you know, that was just vindication that I was doing the right thing. My wife was actually a sporty one. She was, you know, playing for Australia when she was a junior, so in volleyball. So, you know, she should be sitting here, I reckon, but she's at work, so you know, it sucks to be her. But you know, like I like everything. I watch every sport now, especially as a coach. I coach in rugby league, but I watch every sport because I'm a firm believer that you can get skills from every sport for your sport. So, but I love being around sports, and I love my kids being around sports. So it's part of our life.
Yeah. So you're now coaching in rugby league. How did you transition from once you left the army? Did you go, oh, that's what I've always wanted to do, or how did you get into that role?
Well, I was coaching in the Army Rugby Union, and when I got out, well, my young fella started playing rugby league while I was still in, and I was helping his coach out a fair bit, and then I decided, you know what, when I get out, I'll probably follow my son a bit more, so I just decided I'm going to have to do some coaching courses here and get into it. Now I'm fortunate enough to be coaching reserve grade with our club, and my son's not playing this year. He's taken the year off to get bigger, he said, so he can come back next year and whack everyone. That's his mindset's pretty cool. But yeah, the coaching transition was easy. I think the easiest part for me was I did so much coaching in the Army because I coached for medical stuff a lot. So, you know, we trained a whole heap of medics. We trained soldiers to be first aid proficient. So that transition for me was easy. I don't mind being a clown in front of people. I don't mind getting up and making people laugh. So that was easy for me. And I just enjoyed it too much on the outside to let it go. I think it's something that's kept me on the straight and narrow, because having post-traumatic stress from my service is, you know, you've got to keep your mind busy. And one of the best ways to do that is by teaching people something that you know that they don't. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. So with your, let's talk a little bit about your injuries in the Army. So tell people what exactly happened. It's an incredible story.
Yeah, so on the 13th of August, we had a patrol out, and I was actually on the phone to Tam, setting up the new computer, and we are just talking about I'd ring and get the kids on Skype later that afternoon, and there was a massive explosion, and I said, I've got to go, I've got a job. I just knew that it wasn't going to be a good one. So ran outside and we saw a massive mushroom cloud, and people started yelling directions. I just went straight back inside and put my gear on, picked my med kit up, walked over to the CP where the boss was, our command post, and said, I'm out, I'm going. And didn't give him much of a chance to say, you need to stay, because, you know, as a senior medic in that area, it probably would have been better for me to be on the radio. But one of my medics was out there in that car, so I said, no, I'm going. And we went out, travelled about 1,000, 1,200 metres away from the patrol base, received all the casualties from the back of the car, all engineers, the driver and the crew commander, and the rear gunner, all good mates of mine. So I made the call to take them back to our patrol base to do a further assessment in a much safer environment. And that was I think it was the second strike of the day, a vehicle strike from an IED. So, you know, we're pretty lucky to get away with no real bad injuries. They're all just knocked out. So we loaded them up, and as we went back down the road towards the patrol base, we travelled about 200 metres, and a 50-kilo improvised explosive device was detonated on the rear of our vehicle, right underneath the hatch where I was standing on the wheelbase, and through the vehicle 10 metres, and I got ejected and thrown 30 metres. And there's a period there of about 10 minutes. They didn't know that I wasn't in the car until they went to find me to treat the driver from the previous car. It was his second strike of the day for him and his team. And then they realised I wasn't in the car, and my mate Snowy jumped out the hatch and saw me up the road, and he climbed down the back and started bayonet prodding to get to find me. And the old bayonet prodding to find landmines is a very dangerous task, but he just went to it because all the searching mine labs were broken. Fortunately, a good mate, Ty Rodder, who was the explosive ordnance disposal team leader, came around with a searching mine lab, and they searched a path through me, and I remember 3 shadows standing over me. And they were the first 3 guys that got to me, and they had me for 40 minutes without a combat first aid trained person there, which a little bit higher. They were just basic first aid, and they treated me for 40 minutes, and the combat first aider got there, and he had me for nearly 2 hours, and up to the 2 hour mark, so 40 minutes to 2 hours, and the medic got there. He's a good mate of mine, and it's his first serious casualty outside of a resus team, and just saw me lying on the ground there, and he had me for 2 minutes, and then I went nil signs of life for 4 minutes. They put me on the chopper. I was nil signs of life for another 4 minutes, and then we landed in TK, and Tam received a phone call when I got to TK, and Taron Count, where we had our hospital there, and I was on the resus table for 5.5 hours while they put some fluids back into me because it effectively bled out. Then into surgery for a good 10, 11 hours or something like that. Passed in surgery, and they brought me back. That was the second time, and then went to Kandahar, and they confirmed that I'd shattered 2 vertebrae and I'd broken my right leg pretty badly. So then we flew to Germany, and I died on flight to Germany, me and an American guy. And I did an emergency landing at a Bagram airfield and rushed us into surgery there. And then we landed in Germany on the 15th of August. So 13th got blown up, 15th landed in Germany, 16th was my 31st birthday. I woke up in a German hospital, not really sure what was going on. Saw one of my best mates and asked him what the F he was doing there. And he said, "Do you even know where you are?" So, no. And then Tam arrived on the 17th. And I always say that, when I do my speaking gigs, that I don't care how tough you think you are. When you have to explain to your wife how and why you came to a decision to put yourself in a position to get hurt like that, that's a tough day, because as much as men like to think that we're, protectors and providers, it's the woman behind you that does that work, because when you're in the army, you're a whaler. And she raised our kids, and I think for the first 8 years of our relationship, I was only home for 10 weeks, 11 weeks a year. So it's tough on, the spouses that sit behind, and it's really tough when we're overseas, because as much as they're worried about us, they've got to keep the house running. So, that's one of the toughest days of my life, is apologising to my wife for putting myself in a position. But, she wouldn't be the love of my life if I couldn't do that to her. So, I've had 30 surgeries, and I'm sitting here today talking to you with a smile on my face because it was the best day of my life. And people don't understand that. You died 3 times, Coco. It's like, yeah, I did, but, the devil couldn't take me, and Jesus didn't want me. So come back and do something for everyone else.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's effectively Coco in a nutshell.
That's beautifully explained. I just had a spider crawl over my laptop.
I don't do spiders. I'll see you tomorrow.
So here, oh my goodness, you don't do spiders. Here we go. It's an incredible story. It's, just, I'm like my first, I guess, it's stirs emotions in me listening to your story, because I always I have this crazy thing where I put myself in that person's position, and I think, how would I respond? And that apart from that conscious thought, when you saw the 3 shadows on top of you, what was your next moment when you were conscious and you knew what happened? And then what were your thoughts that were going through your mind at that time?
So there's only about 2 or 3 times that I actually have clarity about what happened. So the next time after that was, I was sitting in the resus team in the bay, and the hardest thing is they're all my friends that we trained together, and I've actually taught some of them. So I remember one of our good friends, she's a really close friend to myself and Tam, Bernie Sarong, and she was the sergeant in the resus team, and her job was to look after them, and I looked after all the medics on the outside. And I remember talking to her, and she said, you have to go into surgery, but there's we're not real sure how you're going to go, because you've lost so much blood that you may not come out. So we're just worried that you may not come out. And I said, well, okay, then just give me a kiss on my cheek so I can close my eyes and think about my wife. And so she did. But what I don't remember in that moment is everybody that was in that room came and gave me a kiss on the cheek. And then even some of my mates, that some of the hardest people that I know and toughest blokes I know, who still won't admit that they gave me a kiss on the cheek, but I know they did. You know, and those special moments. And the next one was we went to Kandahar on my way to Germany, and where they did the full scans, and a really close friend of ours, Christy McNaught, she was down there, and her and Tam deployed to Timor in 99. So they've been mates for a lot longer than before I met her. And she came in to say good day, and she rang Tam straight away to say that I was okay. But I think the point at which I realised that something really bad had happened was sitting in Germany and seeing my mate, when I woke up, he was sitting there, and you know, he was the one that I said, "What the F are you doing here?" And he said, "Mate, do you even know where you are?" And he explained that I'd been wounded in action. I was like, and I tried to sit up, and he said, "Don't move, mate, you've got a broken back." But I couldn't do anything because both arms were bandaged up pretty badly. My legs were all still had external fixation on my left leg. And it's like a massive realization hit that something wasn't right. And because I don't have an actual memory of the event that happened, I remember the initial flash, but then there's only little patches, you know, throughout. In my head, I still don't remember the incident, and it's still hard for me to say that I got wounded in action because I don't actually know what happened in that moment. But with my mates, you know, telling me the whole time, explaining to me, visiting me in hospital, and the boys that were there that day actually, you know, talking and keeping in touch, and some of them still blame themselves for what happened. But like I say to them, you can't explain it away and you can't blame anyone, because it just shit happens sometimes, and sometimes it just the depth that varies, and I just happen to be buried to my neck. So,
Yeah.
but you know, like in all that, you know, if we talk about all the bad stuff that happened, I think we overshadow the most positive thing was I'm still here, as are all my mates. You know, no one got killed that day, and I refuse to let this stuff beat me, because in my mind that's a win for the Taliban, and that ain't going to happen. And that's the same attitude my mates have. So we maintain a positive attitude about everything that happened that day, because in the end it was a real positive outcome.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, I've still got clouded memory from the incident, and it makes it difficult when you're trying to write a book, because I don't remember half of it. And then because my memory's been affected too, I'm struggling to remember stuff that happened before that. So, you know, thankfully my mates are there. They ring me and say, "Dude, remember this happened?" And I'm like, "When?" You know, it's but you know, it's part of life now.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just what we
it's
do.
funny because I think about my swimming, and I'd love to write a book, but I've forgotten a lot of stuff, and it's not until someone says to me, "Oh, do you remember we were doing this?" I'm like, "Nah." You know, so I'm like, okay, well,
That's right.
I sort of figure if you ask everybody, you know, what's your favourite memory, or what's, you know, the funniest thing that we've done together, then compile memoirs. I encourage everyone to compile memoirs of their life so that their family and their future generations can read it. You know, or it might be a podcast by then.
Well, see, the
Books might
smart
be
people,
obsolete.
the smart people on my trip actually wrote, like my boss, he had a diary. Tony Bennett's probably the best boss I've had in defence. He was a brilliant tactician, and just an amazing human being. And he actually wrote a diary and got a record of everything that happened, which he tried to encourage us all to do. But I was more focused on doing my thing. And, you know, for me, living in the moment was something that I love doing, and I still love doing. But he wrote Tam a letter. So when the incident happens overseas, you can't call home. They just black out everything. It's a media blackout. So no information gets out until we get all the right information before, and then the army releases what needs to be released. So he wrote a letter to Tam, explaining everything that happened that day. And you know, I've still got that letter. Like, it's in a special folder that comes out at speaking gigs, and you know, I've read parts of that letter out to people, so they get an understanding of what it's like to be on the outside looking in when one of your own mates and soldiers has been hurt. And we get together every couple of years as a reunion. So mean, the last reunion we did, we got to Queenstown in New Zealand and ripped that place up. So, I mean, I'll keep doing reunions. It's 10 years next year, actually, that this happened. So it's, you know, we're getting close to that big one, but it's, you know, that I also encourage people to write things down. I think it's an amazing way to create a moment in history that we all should remember.
Absolutely.
But you just have to try and remember shit.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast.
So tell us now, what lights you up and what inspires you now? What do you know, what makes your heart happy?
What makes my heart happy is my wife and my kids, you know, and that, like, we've got 1.2 acres. So I think just being, like, I only learned, like, I think 4 years ago what contentment was. And I was sitting out the front, and we had early Christmas for my mum because she was working Christmas. She's a nurse. And I was just sitting out the front with a rum at 8 o'clock in the morning, because that's what you do on Christmas morning. And all my kids and my nieces and nephews are just running around the yard. And I was like, well, if this is what life's meant to be, it's pretty good. The other side of what drives me and gives me so much inspiration is speaking to people and teaching people that it's okay to go through shit. You know, because adversity is going to hit no matter what we do. You've just got to work out how you respond to it. And being able to share my story, I love it, because I like humour and I like making people laugh. And when you can make people laugh when you're talking about tough situations, it brings it down. And but yeah, look, my family is probably the number one thing, and then being able to share my story is the second thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're doing speaking gigs. You've obviously there's been a bit of hold on at the moment while we're most of us are in lockdown. So what you know, what do you love? Why do you love speaking?
Well, I love it because it's an opportunity to share. A lot of people go through life and don't have exposure to events like we go through. You know, when you go to a meeting and you're talking to a corporate setting, and there might be, say, 400 people in that setting, you could probably just about guarantee that less than 100 have had an awesome experience that they like talking about, because people get comfortable in life. So I think letting them share your journey and where you've come from whilst learning life lessons, which I think is important. We can't just go and tell our story and not give them something to take away. We've got to have this ability to tell our story and then go, I learnt this and I learnt this and I learnt this, and then this is how you put it together and make it something for you to apply in your life. You can take them on a journey, and I can make people cry, laugh, get angry, and cry again and laugh again, because you know, if, like yourself, if you can talk about things that have happened in your life and you've reached a stage where you can talk without the emotional connection, and you draw on that emotion when you need to, that's what makes you a good speaker. And if you can make people laugh when they're supposed to laugh, and make them feel the emotions to cry and get sad and then angry, that's half the battle, because you're giving them that lived experience that they can go, I've never done this before, but I feel like if this happened, I know what to do now. And that drives me, that having that positive impact on people's lives. So I think you feel the same too when you speak to a room, and if one person comes up to you afterwards and says that changed my whole aspect, then that's a win for us.
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah.
I've got to be careful when I see people cry in the audience. I can't look at them, otherwise I'll start
I struggle if I have to, when I talk about the stuff that happened with Tam and how my PTSD affected the day, like I get emotional there, because for her to stick with me after all that shit, that's pretty special. So I'm one of the lucky ones,
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't have that ability to have that stable, platform that sticks with them.
Yeah.
And they go through a lot on their own, which, brings in all the other issues we're having in society. So I'm lucky with her. Yeah. She's the best thing in my life. So
that's so good. So when I decided to do these interviews, I asked some people to throw some questions at me, what they would like to ask people. So this is from my friend Melissa. Boxer shorts briefs
No,
or commando?
briefs.
Okay.
I
What is
don't
your
do
favourite
commando.
colour?
Uh, I have three, so it's red, green, and yellow. Reggae colours.
Okay, yeah. Do you like reggae music?
I love Bob Marley. Yeah, I just went to One Love concert down in the Gold Coast with my little brother, and it's the best jam I've ever been to. So,
Oh, that's awesome. What is your best advice that you would give to any retiring serviceman or woman?
best advice. Uh, my best advice is to take a breath, because you're losing a huge part of your life. So just take a breath, reassess everything, and you've got to pick a direction to go. And if that direction means that you don't do anything for 6 months, then that's okay. But you've got to make that decision early, because if you rush out and try and do something, it's not going to work straight away. For some people it does. They're just the exception to the rule. But I think taking that breath and taking a bit of space and time to just let your mind accept the fact that you're not into a machine that's been disciplined for the last however many years, that's the most important thing. And you've always got help. Like, we're always here to help.
Yeah, awesome. Peanut butter or Vegemite?
I'm a both. I like Vegemite and peanut butter, but it has to be smooth.
Has to be smooth, no crunchy bits.
Yep. No.
What's your favourite food?
Oh, chicken.
Chicken.
That's a cliche, eh? A black man saying loves chicken. Love chicken.
What would I expect a black man to say?
I don't know. Some people, I think it depends where you're from, but KFC chicken's mad. I'm mad for KFC chicken.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay, KFC chicken. That's so bad.
Yeah, it is. And it's so good at the same time.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, everyone knows it's bad, but there's still a line up through the drive-through.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's better than Macca's.
Yep. What's been your favourite day?
My favourite day?
Yeah.
My wedding day.
Oh.
But also the two days where we had Atlani and Logan, so their day of birth. So I've got 3 favourite days.
Yeah. And how old are your children now?
Leilani's 17, going on 25, and Logan's 15.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Great age. Awesome.
It's a difficult age.
Well, my son is about 10, 18, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, boys are easier, but girls are complex.
Yeah. I thank God every day that I had a boy.
I'm glad I had a pigeon pair, but Jesus, some days I'm pulling my hair out. I don't have much. Look.
Bald is beautiful, my friend.
That's what I keep telling people.
Yeah.
That's what I keep telling people.
My partner is bald. Bald is beautiful.
Yep.
Well, McQuilty, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you today, and my first ever interview. And I've loved the moment we connected. I just loved our chats, and it's been a real pleasure. You've been through some incredible experiences in your life, and I can only say thank you for what you've done for our country, and I just love your energy and your mission in life. So it's been an absolute pleasure, and I thank you again from the bottom of my heart to being part of this.
Thank you for having me as your first one for Macca's Chats. I think this is awesome, and there's a lot of negativity, but thank you for letting me put a bit of positivity back in there and some laughter and humour, and I hope this grows and gets bigger and bigger, which I think it will.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. Appreciate it.
Thanks, mate.